What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors goes head-to-head with a late-night host who thinks charm and control give him free rein to disrespect anyone who sits across from him? What unfolded next would leave the entire studio and the internet speechless. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments, because this confrontation will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about celebrity interviews and late-night television. It was a typical Tuesday evening under the blazing studio lights when Michael B. Jordan took his seat across from Jimmy Kimmel. The crowd buzzed with excitement, expecting the usual light-hearted promo from Michael's latest blockbuster. But within minutes, the mood shifted. This wasn't going to be business as usual, so, "Michael," Kimmel began, flashing that signature grin, but something in his tone felt off, sharper, more calculated. "I've got to ask. There've been some wild rumors about your personal life blowing up on social media. Care to set the record straight?" Michael shifted slightly, keeping a composed smile, but his eyes had already sharpened. "Jimmy, I'm here to talk about the film. That's what we agreed on." "Oh, come on," Kimmel laughed, though it lacked its usual warmth. "The audience deserves the truth. You're sitting in my chair, on my show. The least you can do is be honest with the people who buy your movie tickets." A flicker of tension cracked the room. Even the ever-animated audience quieted. Michael's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. "With all due respect, Jimmy," he said calmly, "there's a difference between honesty and gossip. I've always been upfront about my work, my craft, and what matters, but I don't do tabloid theater." Kimmel leaned forward, tone dripping with condescension. "Everything's fair game when you sit in that chair. Your relationships, politics, family, everything. That's how this works, Michael. You don't get to control the narrative." Years of media training and Hollywood pressure had refined Michael's composure into a steel shield. But something about that last line, "That's how this works," clearly hit a nerve. "No," Michael said, his voice firm. "That's not how this works. That's how you think it works. There's a difference." "Oh, is there?" Kimmel shot back, his sarcasm turning acidic. "Please, enlighten me. I've been doing this for decades. I think I know how my own show operates." Silence fell. This was no longer playful banter. It was a real conflict, unfolding in real time. Michael leaned in slightly. "I've sat with everyone, from Oprah to Howard Stern. They all understood something you apparently don't. There's a line between entertainment and exploitation. They treated me like a person before a celebrity." Kimmel scoffed, but the laugh was hollow. "Now, that's rich, coming from someone who's made millions playing the same tough guy role 5 years running. You want to talk exploitation? How about phoning in the same performance over and over?" A ripple of audible gasps rolled through the audience. Even Michael's publicist looked stricken. But Michael himself didn't flinch. He went still, dangerously still. "Excuse me?" he said, voice quiet and razor-sharp. "Did you just question my integrity as an actor?" "I'm questioning a lot of things," Kimmel snapped. "Your acting, your authenticity, your whole polished public image. Let's be real. You're just another Hollywood pretty boy who lucked into a couple of good roles." It was a line too far. Michael's hands, once relaxed, curled slowly into fists on the armrests. The studio's cameras zoomed in tight, instinctively capturing what was now more than just an uncomfortable exchange. It was a breakdown of decorum, professionalism, and respect. "Jimmy," Michael said evenly, his tone colder now, every syllable deliberate. I suggest you be very careful with your next words, because right now you're not just disrespecting me. You're insulting every artist who's ever worked their ass off for a shred of credibility in this industry. Michael leaned in, eyes locked on Jimmy. Every actor who's poured years into their craft. You're disrespecting all of them. Every person who's fought to make something of themselves. Jimmy scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. Oh, spare me the noble monologue. You think a couple of trophies and a marketable face make you untouchable? This is late night, Michael. If you can't handle the heat, maybe you should stick to your safe little superhero gigs, where the lines are scripted and nobody gets hurt. That was the breaking point. Michael's carefully curated calm, the polished media training, the professionalism, the smile, fractured. His voice dropped to a low, dangerous whisper that cut through the silence like a knife. Let me explain something, Jimmy. I didn't luck into anything. Every role I've landed, every award I've earned, every paycheck I've cashed, I worked for it. I bled for it. I've stood in rooms with directors whose worst day of filmmaking would outshine anything you've ever done on that stage. Jimmy barked a laugh, but his confidence cracked. Trying to intimidate me with the tough guy act? Please. This is my show, my rules. You're in my house. Michael's reply was ice cold. Your house? Jimmy, you're not even the funniest person in this building. You're a middle-aged man whose biggest claim to fame is mocking people who are younger, bolder, and more relevant than you've ever been. The audience was dead silent. No laughter, no applause, just shock. This wasn't a late-night interview anymore. It was a televised meltdown, and nobody knew who'd survive it. Michael didn't stop. He leaned in further. You want to talk about personal lives? Fine. Let's talk about yours. About how your entire career is built on being the safe choice. The vanilla pick networks go with when they want someone who won't rock the boat or say anything that actually matters. Jimmy flushed, his usual snark slipping. You don't know what you're talking about. Michael didn't blink. I know exactly what I'm talking about. You resent people like me because we take risks. We tell stories that matter. We make art that challenges people. You recycle jokes written by a room of people way funnier than you, and interview celebrities more compelling than you. Thea, camera zoomed in. Jimmy's hand trembled slightly as he grabbed his mug, trying to steady himself. He snapped. You've been reading your own press too much, sitting there like you're some visionary artist. You're just another actor with good genes and a decent agent. Michael tilted his head, studying him like a specimen. Jimmy, are you having a breakdown? Because whatever this is, it's sad. Your audience deserves better than this mess. Jimmy fired back, voice cracking. My audience loves me. Michael didn't raise his voice. He just looked out at the crowd. Do they? Because they don't look entertained right now. They look embarrassed for you. Jimmy's producer frantically motioned from behind the camera for a commercial break. But Jimmy was spiraling. Michael could sense it, and he didn't let up. You want to know what this is really about? You're angry I exist. Angry that while you're up here making safe little jokes about celebrities and headlines, people like me are out there making something, taking risks, creating real change. Jimmy laughed bitterly. Change? Please, you make movies. You play pretend. For a living. Don't act like you're saving the world. Michael didn't miss a beat. And you tell jokes for a living. But here's the difference. My work moves people. It inspires. Maybe someone sees themselves differently because of something I brought to life. What does your show do, Jimmy? Help people fall asleep? The audience began to murmur, Some nodding, others stunned. Jimmy noticed. He was losing them. Fast. His jokes, his timing, his control. All of it. Slipping. And Michael wasn't finished. "You think you're better than everyone who sits in this chair. But the truth is, Jimmy, you're terrified of people who don't play by your rules." Jimmy's voice was rising now, his composure completely gone. "Oh, so you just think you're better than everyone else, huh? Strutting around Hollywood like some kind of royalty. Like we're all supposed to bow down to the great Michael B. Jordan." Michael didn't flinch. "I never said I was better than anyone, Jimmy. But I am better than this. Better than sitting here while you try to tear me down just to feel relevant. Better than pretending this is entertainment when it's really just sad." He stood up. Slowly. Deliberately. But Jimmy wasn't ready to let him go. In a split second, decision that would haunt his career forever, Jimmy reached out and grabbed Michael's arm. "Sit down!" he hissed. "We're not done here." The touch was like a live wire. Michael looked down at Jimmy's hand, then back up at his face. His expression glacial. Lethal. "Jimmy," he said, voice low and razor-sharp. "Take your hand off me. Right now." Something in Michael's tone finally cut through Jimmy's. Red haze. His grip released. But the damage had been done. A line had been crossed, and everyone in the studio knew it. "Did you just put your hands on me?" Michael asked, his voice still dangerously calm. "Did you just physically try to keep me in a chair so you could continue humiliating me on national television?" Jimmy's face turned ashen. "Michael, I didn't mean to. I was just—" "You were just what?" Michael cut in. "So desperate to hold on to control that you forgot basic human decency? You forgot I'm a guest. A person. Not your prop." Silence fell over the studio like a curtain. Even the camera crew had stopped moving. Michael straightened fully now, towering over Jimmy in every sense. "You know what the really sad part is?" he continued. "I came here tonight excited to talk about my work. I came here with respect for you and your show. I thought we'd have a real conversation about art, creativity, about things that matter." Jimmy opened his mouth to speak, but Michael raised a hand. "No. You had your chance. Now it's my turn." Michael's voice was quiet but full of fire. "You want to know what I think, Jimmy? I think you're a coward. You're so afraid of becoming irrelevant that you'll drag down anyone who reminds you of what you've lost. You're not a host. You're a bully with a microphone." The audience was frozen, staring, shocked, some recording. Jimmy looked like a man unraveling. "Michael, please," he whispered. Can we start over?" Michael gave a hollow laugh. "Start over? Jimmy, there's no starting over from this. Tonight you showed everyone who you really are." Jimmy tried to interject, but Michael turned to the cameras. "You want to know what really happened here?" he said, addressing the nation now. "This man invited me on his show under false pretenses. He told my team we'd talk about my new film, my creative process, my next projects. Instead, he ambushed me with personal attacks and tabloid gossip," Jimmy stammered. But Michael pressed on. "And when I didn't play along, when I refused to be humiliated, he got angry. So angry that he put his hands on me, to force me to stay, to participate in my own degradation." The weight of his words settled over the room like a storm cloud. "Jimmy," Michael said softly, locking eyes with him. "Look at me. Really, look. Do you understand what you've done? In 5 minutes, you've burned down everything you spent years building." Jimmy looked up. His eyes were red. For a moment, it looked like he might apologize. But then he made the worst decision of his life. His face twisted into something bitter, something desperate. He turned to the audience, forcing a grin that didn't touch his eyes. "Well, folks," he said, voice strained. "I guess we're seeing the real Michael B. Jordan tonight. This is what happens when Hollywood divas don't get their way. They throw tantrums." The gasp from the audience was immediate, audible. Even his most loyal fans looked stunned. And Michael? He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched as Jimmy Fallon's career unraveled before millions. Jimmy kept digging, every word shoveling deeper into his own grave. Michael's voice cut through the tension, sharp with disbelief. "Jimmy, you physically grabbed me. You attacked my career. You ambushed me with lies. And I'm the prima donna?" He stared at the host, incredulous. "Do you even hear yourself right now?" But Jimmy was beyond reason. Cornered, flailing, desperate. And so he made the one mistake that sealed his fate. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jimmy said, gesturing to the audience with a strained smile. "This is exactly why I don't usually have guests like this on my show. They come in thinking they're too good for real questions, too important to be held accountable. Well, Michael, this is my show. And on my show, nobody is above being called out." A cold silence fell like a curtain. Michael slowly turned to the audience, then back to Jimmy. His eyes burned with clarity. "Guests like this?" he repeated, each word deliberate. "Jimmy, what exactly do you mean by guests like this?" The question landed like a thunderclap. The studio held its breath. "Because I'm starting to think this has nothing to do with how I answered your questions." Jimmy paled, realization dawning. "That's not what I meant. I just meant, difficult guests, demanding ones." Michael didn't blink. "No, Jimmy. That's exactly what you meant. And now, everyone knows it." His tone wasn't angry. It was worse. Calm, resolute, devastating. "You had a chance to be better," he continued. "To show grace, professionalism, basic human decency. But instead, you chose this. You showed everyone exactly who you are when the cameras are on." Jimmy was sweating now. His collar clung to his neck, hands trembling. He clutched his cue cards like a life raft. "Michael, I think you're overreacting. We're just talking here." Michael laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "A conversation requires mutual respect. What we have here is a desperate man trying to tear down someone who intimidates him. And that someone refusing to be torn down." The band exchanged uneasy glances. Writers avoided eye contact. Producers whispered frantically into headsets. Everyone knew this moment would be etched into television history. Michael leaned in. "You want to know what really happened tonight? You saw me walk in here, confident, successful, respected, and it reminded you of everything you're not, everything you'll never be." Jimmy's mouth opened, but no defense came. "Ridiculous," he finally mumbled. But even he didn't believe it. "Is it?" Michael's voice was soft, but each syllable hit like a hammer. "Because it looks to me like a man so terrified of his own irrelevance that he's willing to self-destruct on live television just to drag someone else down with him." Michael turned to walk off stage. "You can't just leave." Jimmy's voice cracked. "We still have 10 minutes left." Michael stopped, turned slowly. "Watch me." Jimmy's desperation exploded. "If you walk off this stage, you'll never work in this town again. I have friends, connections. I can make sure—" "Stop," Michael's voice cut like a blade. "Just stop." He took a breath. "Do you hear yourself right now? You're threatening me for refusing to let you humiliate me. You're actually threatening my career." Because I'm choosing to keep my dignity intact. The studio was frozen. Some audience members had their hands over their mouths. Others stared wide-eyed, unable to look away. Michael stepped forward. "Let me explain something to you, Jimmy. I don't need you. I don't need your show, your approval, your platform, or your pretend friendship." He paused. "What I do need are people who understand that success and talent aren't threats to be dismantled. They're achievements to be honored." Jimmy tried to interject. Michael raised a hand. "I'm not finished. You said I'd never work in this town again. But Jimmy, this town is built on creativity, authenticity, and the ability to connect with people. You've just shown, in front of millions, that you lack all three. If anyone's career is on life support after tonight, it isn't mine." He leaned in, voice low but thunderous. "You want to know the difference between us?" Michael asked. "When people talk about tonight, they'll remember a man who held his head high, and a man who exposed himself as petty, cruel, and crumbling under pressure. Which one do you think you are?" Jimmy's lips moved, but no sound came. He looked like a man drowning in his own failure. Michael took a step back and sighed. "You wanted something personal. Here's personal." He looked Jimmy dead in the eyes. "I was raised to lift others up, to be a man of integrity, whether the cameras are rolling or not. And if I sat here 1 second longer and pretended this was okay, my mother would be ashamed of me." He straightened his jacket, turned to the main camera. "To everyone watching, thank you. What you saw tonight wasn't entertainment. It was a cautionary tale about what happens when insecurity gets a spotlight and mistakes that can't be undone." Michael glanced back at Jimmy, who sat frozen, pale and slouched behind his desk. "Jimmy," he said gently, "I hope you get the help you need. This isn't who you have to be. But I won't be around to see the change." He turned toward the exit, then paused at the steps, casting one final look back. "You know what's really sad?" he said, voice tinged with sadness. "I used to watch your show. I used to think you were funny. I used to respect you. But tonight, you showed me that person never really existed." And with that, Michael B. Jordan walked off stage, through the stunned crowd, out of the studio, and into television history. Jimmy sat alone. The lights blazed above him. The cameras stayed on. The silence grew heavy. People began murmuring, then whispering, then talking openly. After what felt like forever, Jimmy finally looked up at the lens. "We'll be right back," he whispered. But everyone watching knew the truth. Nothing would ever be the same again. The credits didn't roll that night. The show cut to an abrupt, unscheduled commercial break that lasted until the evening news. Somewhere in Los Angeles, Michael B. Jordan drove home, his integrity intact, his reputation elevated, his conscience clear. That night, one of Hollywood's biggest stars reminded the world what real strength looks like. That night, a talk show host learned some lines once crossed can never be uncrossed. That night, television history was made, one devastating comeback at a time.